Now, just last Friday, the state released its latest jobs report, and while Utah's job growth did slow to 2.6%, marking the first time in several months we've been below our historical average, the unemployment rate dropped again and is now down to just 4.6%. Now, that number is important because we're inching closer to that level economists call full employment, which is around 3.5% unemployment. We've also seen the number of Utahns out of work drop from over 100,000 at the peak of the recession down to just over 60,000. Still too many, but notable progress. Salt Lake Chamber Chief Economist Natalie Gochner says the real story is the type of jobs we're creating.
Most important, and the real story in the jobs report, was that private sector job growth grew at a serious 3.7%, while the public sector contracted, or negative growth of 2.3%. So we are in the midst of a private sector job boom in our state.
Now, Gochner's comments came during a news conference earlier this week announcing the formation of the Utah Transportation Coalition, a group championing strategic investments in Utah's transportation infrastructure. The Utah Transportation Coalition also released a study showing a big economic payoff for funding the state's 2040 Unified Transportation Plan.
It identifies over $54 billion in critically needed investment through 2040 to ensure good mobility as our population grows, as was earlier described. 2, current revenue sources will generate about $43 billion, necessitating an additional $11 billion to implement the plan and to protect our economy. The Transportation Coalition will be working over the next 2 decades with policymakers to make up that $11 billion gap.
Now, just to make sure you got that, we get the best bang for our buck when we invest $54 billion over that time period. Now, we have over $43 billion already planned, so we need to come up with another $11 billion. That's real money. But why do we need that investment?
We all know that the population of this great state and this area will continue to grow dramatically. And as the population continues to grow, it's estimated that perhaps as much as 60% over the next 30 years. Think of what that means in terms of infrastructure and what it requires in terms of investment to make our transportation system continue to be the model that is around the country. So it's critical that we continue to invest in our roads, in our highways, our public transit, and even the walking and biking trails.
In other words, you've heard that phrase, if you build it, they will come. Well, here in Utah, it's more like they're coming, so you better build it. According to the study produced by the Economic Development Research Group of Boston, implementing the plan will result in nearly 183,000 cumulative new jobs created by 2040. $130.5 billion in additional household income, $183.6 billion in additional GDP for the state, and $22.2 billion in additional tax revenues from economic growth.
The cumulative value of all of that transportation investment is that our economy works. People and products get where they need to be. So remember 3 things. Economic fundamentals matter. Utah has them in droves. Transportation investment is a critical economic contributor, and if we invest in the Unified Transportation Plan, we will create jobs, income, and business output for Utahns.
Investing in transportation has paid off for us over the past decade, so much so that we have become the icon of this nation in how to do things right, under budget, ahead of schedule, and most importantly, before we just totally gridlock our community. It truly pays off for us.
You can find a link to the full transportation study as well as an executive summary in this post if you're watching on our blog. If you're watching on YouTube, you can find it in the information below. For the Salt Lake Chamber, I'm Marty Carpenter.